Hey everybody, and welcome back to Nominee Questionable Movies. On tonight's episode, we are recording from a very special location in Saratoga Springs, New York. Unfortunately, it turns out that sitting outside by a fountain is not conducive to having a very loud recording volume. So even with manipulating the sound, it's a little low, as is this opening.
Hey everybody, this is Dan.
And this is Ron.
And it's Matt.
Welcome, Matt.
Hi, Matt. And you're listening to a Nominee Questionable Movies with Dan, Ron, and now Matt. We have added a new member to the family.
A returning new member.
A returning new member.
A very special guest.
Special guest.
That didn't leave.
That's been with us for a while. And that's not the only thing special about this episode. We're also recording from a very special location. We are at one of the springs in Saratoga Springs, New York. I cannot remember exactly which spring, but it's the one that still tastes like sulfur.
Bather Spring?
Bather?
Let me take a look.
The spring where somebody was making a Google eyes at me? Hathorn.
So we're at Hathorn Spring in scenic Saratoga Springs, New York. Those of you who've been listening to the program for a while may know that I grew up around here. I can drink a lot of the sulfur water because I am secretly a scion of the devil.
And we discovered a couple of hours ago that I can't drink the sulfur water.
And we're also here because of the Travers.
Yes.
Yeah, these guys accidentally went to the Travers this morning, or this afternoon.
What is the Travers?
So the Travers is, it's the biggest series of races that happens at the Saratoga Springs racetrack. And it's part of the Triple Crown with the Belmont Stakes and the Kentucky Derby. And I just told these guys, oh yeah, go over to the track. It won't be, it'll be busy, but it won't be too busy. It'll be like $2 to get in, because the last time I went, it was like $2 to get in. And and I was wrong on all counts. And then you guys ended up, you didn't know what the Travers was until you got out of the Travers, and then I think I explained it to you over dinner. But
it just seemed like the Burning Man of horse racing. I wasn't really sure. There were all these people dressed in fancy clothes, getting really drunk, and not even being anywhere near the racetrack.
Oh yeah,
they were just like hanging out.
Going to the racetrack is
optional.
Well, watching the horses. Well, yeah, I mean it's a free country in that regard. But
but within the racetrack, most people were avoiding the racetrack.
Well, when people would go to the opera, when Mozart was writing operas, most of them would go to be seen in a box, and they would talk through most of it, and like a bunch of horses running around in circles isn't quite Mozart, so. I think it's about being seen around the right people.
We're trying to do a podcast over here, guys. So just,
tone it down a bit.
Yeah. So this is the. So I believe this is the first time we've ever recorded outside in a public location. I think the only other time we ever recorded outside was at my old apartment.
Yeah, on your porch.
And so this is going to be fun to edit. Anyway.
That rhythmic sound of water that you're hearing is from the springs.
Yeah, and this is a legit spring. This is actually coming from the ground and not from the municipal water system. And so we watched a few movies this episode.
Yeah, we watched a lot. Maybe we could start because we saw horses today.
Yeah.
Saratoga is really all about horses. And we watched Jordan Peele's new film at the drive-in.
No,
that has a lot of horses in it.
Wait,
I meant nope. I didn't see the movie.
Oh.
Okay, no. Yeah. There's a lot of horses in that movie.
Oh, wow!
And there's some Evangelion-style monsters. And, there's one Evangelion-style monster, but they did a really good job with it.
Oh yeah. By the way, spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, I think everybody knows there's a monster in the movie, right?
No.
Oh.
I mean,
were the trailers? Was the trailer just that guy on a horse?
I didn't watch the trailer.
Oh. Anyway, so I just spoiled the movie for you. So I just saved you $12. You're welcome.
It's a kind of mashup of horror, western, science fiction, and comedy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we were talking about some people have compared it to Spielberg, like maybe Spielberg's War of the Worlds. There's also some Close Encounters in there. But then what struck me is like the sort of episodic storytelling, and also the use of pop culture, like music and stuff, made me think more of like Pulp Fiction or something. And then I've read some people say that this movie actually has more in common with like 90s indie movies.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, like that it's digressive and
it's a rambling movie.
Yeah, but that's actually what's
and I like that. Yeah, it was loose. It felt kind of improvisational, but like you could tell from the camera work that it was pretty. At the very least, like the shots were planned out very carefully. And there's a lot of just like very striking individual sequences, which I think a lot of movies they will sacrifice kind of in striking individual sequences for an overall coherence that doesn't necessarily pay off as well as a single sequence. Like a classic example I'm thinking of is like the Red Shoes, right? Like the Red Shoes is that 10-minute like insane acid trip dream sequence in the middle of that, right? And like that's really, I mean, that movie is considered like some kind of great classic movie purely because of that 10 minutes. The rest of it is kind of like a middling melodrama, at least in my book. But all you really need is you need one thing that's going to stick in people's heads for a long time. And this movie has a few of those, I think.
Yeah, although, there's a sequence involving a chimpanzee that I think is one for the books. Like,
and it's just masterfully shot.
Yeah, I think actually this movie probably will, just like Get Out, enter the Pantheon, if not for that one sequence, which I think is something no one has ever seen in a horror movie before.
It's
I guess we're not going to spoil it, but it involves a.
It's like the logical endpoint of BoJack Horseman, basically. We can't. We've spoiled literally everything else we've ever watched, though.
Yeah, but this is a new movie.
That's true.
We've only done one new movie before. Everything else we've done is 10 years old or older.
So these people live on a ranch, and this thing comes out of the sky, and it just keeps whispering really loudly into the ether, "Rosebud, Rosebud."
Wait. I'm going to have to wipe that part out.
What else can we say?
Well, we can describe what the movie's about.
Well, I guess it's about two siblings who are animal wranglers for Hollywood movies, and they have a horse ranch. And their father died mysteriously, and they are the descendants of a man who was one of the first black men in movies and motion pictures, and that's based on a true story. What was the name of the guy who made those early?
Edward Muybridge.
Edward Muybridge, right? So he was the one who animated the photographs of the horse running, right?
Yeah.
And the man riding the horse was a black horse rider, and he's uncredited. And actually, I don't know if anyone knows who he really was. So Jordan Peele used that as the sort of basis for these characters, right? And we should say that unlike Us and Get Out, what's going on thematically and conceptually in this movie is a little bit more ambiguous or subtle than the other films.
I like that it was kind of a mishmash. Well, it wasn't a mishmash. Like, clearly the things had something to do with each other, but it wasn't entirely obvious how they were supposed to come together, and it really wouldn't have helped the movie if they had attempted to explain it at all.
He's clearly reflecting on black people's role in movies and about movie making in general. Without giving too much away, I guess the plot involves the characters trying to get an impossible shot, right? And make film history. So that they can become rich and famous on Oprah.
Right, and also not get killed by an alien thing.
Yes.
Is there a word for that, like exposition at the end of a movie, right? Where it's like everything's kind of mysterious, and then one guy comes at her, like in that movie you saw Beast, right? When the guy explains, like, "Oh, it's because we killed the lion's pride, and now it's going to kill all of us," and it's like, it doesn't add anything.
Just spoiled another new movie.
Yeah. So that's two new movies that are spoiled.
I don't know if it's possible to spoil Beast.
I think Beast spoils itself. It's like food on a counter. Like, even if it's only been out for a week, right? Like, you wouldn't eat food that was out on a counter for a week.
Yeah. If we're going to talk about Beast, let me just say that unlike Nope, which we saw before it, or after it at the drive-in, and we're double feature, what you see is what you get. Beast does not have any deeper allegorical meaning. It's not, even though it takes place in South Africa, it has nothing, it's not an allegory about racism.
Well, but I think you're wrong, Matt. I think there is a deeper meaning. I think that... So the movie's about Idris Elba has 2 daughters and, like, a white friend, and they get chased by a lion.
And he's a widower.
And the lion represents the shadow of Idris Elba's former relevance.
Ouch.
Wow.
I don't...
Why? What?
He was in The Wire, and now he's doing this shit. I scared Matt off.
You know he's done other stuff, right?
Yeah. And
my nose?
he did much better stuff before Beast.
Yeah.
No, Idris Elba is not the problem with this movie. That was just like too easy a pot shot to make.
I think he makes a very credible action star. I think the problem with this movie is if you don't accept that a CGI lion is hunting these people for an hour and a half, then you're not really going to like the movie that much.
I mean, it was enjoyable, and it's a good movie to see in a drive-in.
Is that your way of saying you hated it?
I guess I'm just saying that if there's other things to add value to the experience of watching it beyond just the experience of watching the movie itself, use them. You're outside, you're in a lawn chair, you're eating junk food, you're with your friends. It's a nice experience regardless of whether the CGI lion is kind of unconvincing or not.
This would be a good time to mention that we saw both of these movies at a drive-in.
Yeah.
At the Malta Drive-In. Yeah, and I would say I can judge how interesting a film is by how much the drive-in failed to satisfy me. So with Beast, I feel like I got it. I don't ever need to see it again. And with Nope, I'm like, you know what? I have to go now watch this in a proper movie theater or in my private movie theater at home because there's a lot going on with the dialogue and with the music and
and I think it's like a drive-in. The movie becomes it's a spectacle. You're not supposed to really be watching it that carefully and closely.
Right. And Nope is a spectacle about spectacle. So it's like, if nothing else, Jordan Peele cares a lot about like every aspect of the movie. And that's something you don't see very often anymore.
Well, and I think like a lot of it was kind of, because this is my first Jordan Peele movie. I saw a fair amount of that sketch show that he did.
Oh, you haven't seen Get Out?
I haven't seen Get Out. I haven't seen Us. And so what kind of struck me was how little of the visual language of sketch comedy was in this. Like, this was a movie by a guy who has watched a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And he kind of knows what tools he has to work with.
He wanted to be a puppeteer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? What stopped him?
I don't know. I didn't read enough of the article.
Oh, but you're like me, Kyle. No, sorry, we have to.
But again, I hate to like make the comparison to Pulp Fiction or Tarantino, but it is a sort of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood kind of movie where it has this. It's about like people who are in the movie business, and it has these characters who are sort of like movie industry types, I guess. Like there's a kind of deranged cinematographer.
There's a deranged cinematographer. There's like a traumatized ex-child star.
Yeah.
2 of those actually, but one of them gets way more screen time.
Yeah, and it's told like kind of chronologically jumbled, but not entirely. But and then it has like a hangout movie feeling. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it feels like that. It feels like, are we ever getting to the alien?
That was 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
I thought that was like an hour and 45.
Let's put it this way: we haven't given it enough thought.
I would have sworn that Beast was 2 hours and 10 minutes.
And at this point, we saved you about 30 seconds of 2 very loud bikers revving their engines for about 30 seconds. And now back to the show. I know that Nope. I thought Nope was an hour and 45 minutes too, which is why I thought that I only slept through 10 minutes of it. But it turns out that I slept through 45, so I had a lot to rewatch. But I caught up. I watched it all.
So I think like a part of the movie watching experience that we've neglected in a lot of episodes up to this point is, did you have any like weird or kind of like fascinating dreams during any of these movies when you were asleep? Or were they like not long enough for you to go into a REM cycle? Like, are we gonna have to watch Andrei Rublev to get like a good answer to this question?
No, well, sometimes my dream will be impacted by whatever's going on, so I probably, heard whatever was going on in the movie.
So you
but
had
I
a
don't
dream
remember.
about like Matt and I eating nachos?
Probably.
Was it good for you too?
The nachos? I had a few.
Can we talk about the one movie that I think Ron stayed awake for the most?
Oh, Evil Toons?
Evil Toons.
Yeah.
Evil Toons.
Which was my choice. I did pick it.
Ron, maybe you want to talk about why you chose Evil Toons?
He made his bed and he laid in it without sleeping this time.
Well, so now, at this point, this is not at the drive-in. This was at Dan's place.
We just had $36 worth of Taco Bell. This is the relevant part. Maybe.
And Dan went into his media library and came out with 5 movies that he had never seen. Oddities. I don't remember what term he used.
It was Mirror with like they weren't great movies. Right? I was under no impression they were great movies. So, it was like Mystery Monsters, Mirror.
I felt a little bit like unpaid labor for Silver Factory at this point. Like, we're screening this to see if Dan's going to keep it or sell it to a collector, for a lot of money, or whether it's just going to end up holding down
it's just going to sit in my house. Yeah.
Well,
and
so
Evil Toons is definitely getting sold.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not keeping
Yeah.
that one. That's not a keeper.
I would no. I mean, there's there's a lot of really nice like female human breasts in this movie, but not much else.
So I just want to say the reason I picked this movie was the title said Evil Toon, and it looked like it was going to be about that I was expecting evil cartoons.
Well, they do name check Who Framed Roger Rabbit right there on the back of the box.
So cartoons.
And
with
not
humans.
Just cartoons, live action and animation combination.
It does have like 30 seconds of that.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. There was one cartoon character in the entire movie, and you barely see it. However, there were some things that some of us found alluring.
Well, let's back up a little bit. So this film was made in 1992 by a guy named Fred Olin Ray, who, according to Letterboxd, has directed 153 movies.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, when it's like porno, you can direct one a day.
Well, so apparently he shot this for Roger Corman for American Independent Pictures.
No, he wanted to. Roger Corman wouldn't do it.
Oh, okay, but
because on the DVD he's saying like Roger Corman thought this was a bad idea, and when Roger Corman thinks it's a bad idea, it's probably a bad idea.
Okay, so it was on AIP, and it had an old cult movie actor who was in a lot of AIP stuff and Corman stuff, Dick Miller. So Dick Miller plays like. He basically plays like a guy who runs a cleaning service, and he has these 4 college girls who are suspiciously too old to be in college, and he drops them off at a house, and they're supposed to clean it before the house is going to be sold.
But I would say they're old. They're old in all the right ways.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a more gentlemanly way to say it, I guess.
They're old enough to be in a Fred Olin Ray film.
These are women.
Yeah.
These are not girls.
And the upshot is that they go to this house, but David Carradine gets there first.
Oh, yeah, that was the other reason I picked it. It's because David Carradine is in it.
Yeah, and David Carradine has what looks like the Necronomicon, and he delivers it to them. And, of course, it says something like they open up the book, and it says, "Don't read the incantation."
And then they read the incantation.
Right, and then they release this cartoon wolf who then proceeds...
I don't like... But it's not like a Tex Avery wolf. It's like a wolf on steroids. It's like a bro wolf.
Yeah, and then he basically sexually assaults one of the women and possesses her. The cartoon does. And then the rest of the film is, these women trying to outrun the demon that's taken over their friend's body. And then, for some weird reason, Carradine is never shown in the same shot with any of the other actors. until the very end.
The very end, and that's kind of what all the build-up is towards, because the rest of it, you kind of know what's going to happen. There's some, like, entertaining, like, terrible acting in this movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was, like, one line we chuckled pretty hard at. Yeah, just to that guy who rode by on the motorcycle, we're not doing the wild one until next week. But I appreciate your enthusiasm.
But you know what? There was one really good part about the movie. It eventually ended.
Oh, yeah, and there was this intro on the DVD.
Yeah, so Fred Olin Ray, I guess, for the DVD, he introduced the film.
And Fred Olin Ray looks exactly how you would imagine Fred Olin Ray would look.
Yeah, he looks like the kind of guy who would go to the racetrack in Saratoga with, like, a pair of dice stitched to his shirt.
Yeah.
Wearing a Panama hat and a wallet chain.
You may have seen Fred Olin Ray at the racetrack today.
So what would you call this movie if not softcore porn?
Sexploitation.
Yeah, it was like a sexploitation horror film.
Except it was like way less. He's not bashful about it. Like the sex definitely comes first.
There's a character named Biff.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of on that
Biff
level.
looks like he's like 50.
Yeah. It's not a good film.
It's a terrible
The DVD came with a postcard, and I guess you could send that postcard to Fred Olin Ray.
You'd have to send 4 postcards, but he didn't say that he had any other movies on DVD.
And then he would send you like a shitty drawing of the wolf from the movie.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a weird pitch because like the wolf like rapes and then possesses a woman and then goes on a killing spree. So I don't know why.
But it's movie memorabilia. Okay. You know, I don't know why. I mean, I know a lady who paid like $9,000 for like a cufflink from the Twilight movie. Like, why would you want that?
Okay, so maybe if anyone in the listening audience wants this DVD, what would you be willing to part with it for?
It goes for $20. If you're actually okay,
postcard's still there.
Didn't we have to talk to a lawyer before you started doing giveaways or something? Anyway, if one of you is listening. And
wants it.
We're going to say a secret word some point later, unless I forget. And I'm not going to tell you what the secret word is. You're going to have to guess what the secret... No, that's not going to work as a contest rules. Leave a comment, and a month after this goes up, the comment... We're going to pick a comment at random, and then this movie will be your problem in your house instead of my problem in my house.
Or really...
He agrees.
Is there a muffler shop anywhere in Saratoga?
No, there's no muffler shop anywhere.
So the one of you that is actually interested in this movie, it's yours.
Yeah, just you have to prove how genuine your interest is.
Right.
Evil Toons.
It is not for resale.
It is, well, if we don't get any comments on this video in a month, I think it's going to be for resale.
Oh, yeah. No, just whoever we give it to.
The funny thing about
for life.
Evil Toons is that...
Yeah, you can never sell it. You have to keep it for the rest of your godforsaken existence.
The funny thing about Evil Toons is that it's arguably worse than the other film we watched at your house just a couple of days before that.
Oh, which one was... Oh, the Matt Cimber movie?
Yeah, Matt Cimber's Fake Out from 1982.
Which has another name.
I don't know. I mean, at least Evil Toons had boobs.
Oh, Nevada Heat. We saw Nevada Heat, which I'm worried is actually a censored version of Fake Out.
According to Wikipedia, there were, like, Fake Out is the name, but it was released as Nevada Heat or something like that.
So what Matt is saying right now is that the movie was so bad and the portions were so small.
Yes. Actually, I guess the portions weren't that small. According to Letterboxd, this comes in at 96 minutes. Just a couple of things. This was shot by Matt Cimber, who hopefully we'll be hearing more about in future episodes. He has the distinction of having been Jane Mansfield's third and final husband. He also shot her in a film where it's like a wannabe Tennessee Williams thing where she does serious acting. He went on to do sexploitation and blaxploitation movies, and then eventually made 2 notorious films with Pia Zadora, one of which is called Butterfly with Stacy Keach. That's the one that got her the Golden Globe for Best Newcomer the year that came out.
And the Razzie.
And she also won the Razzie, in that same year. But what can we say about her?
She has a very youthful energy. That's, I think, the polite way to put it.
Pia Zadora started out as a child actor. She was in Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Right.
And
it was all downhill from there.
The reason that she came back on the scene in the early 80s was because she married a very, very wealthy man, Meshulam Riklis, who was the owner of the Riviera Hotel in Vegas. And so he basically financed her career as both a pop singer and a movie star. And she did Butterfly, which, of course, he basically paid off the Golden Globes to get her that award. And this was the follow-up film after Butterfly, which won her the Razzie.
Oh, wait, I got an idea for the giveaway.
Okay.
So if the first person to buy us a Golden Globe gets my DVD copy of Evil Toons, now that I know you can buy Golden Globes.
So Meshulam Riklis is probably going to end up getting this.
Is he? He's got to be dead.
He's probably dead, yeah.
So nobody's going to... I'm going to be stuck with that thing?
Pia Zadora is alive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Pia Zadora, if you're listening and you want a copy of Evil Toons, hit me up.
So there's a quote on a Letterboxd review for this film. I don't know if it's accurate. I threatened to commit suicide if Fake Out was released. Pia Zadora.
That bad.
Yeah, it's not a great film. Do you want me to do the plot recap on this one?
Yeah.
Quick one. So Pia Zadora plays a nightclub singer at the Riviera, right? Because this movie is also product placement for her husband's casino and hotel.
Well, it's not just that. It's like because they run a car into it, so it's like justification for redoing the lobby of the casino.
Right. Yeah. So she's a nightclub singer, and her boyfriend is a gangster, and the feds are putting him on trial, and they forced her to testify. They throw her in basically prison for a few days, and they're like, "You're going to stay locked up in prison unless you testify." And so she says, "Okay, I'll squeal," and then she's put under protective custody by two cops, Telly Savalas and Desi Arnaz Jr. And for some weird reason, while protecting her in advance of her testimony, they take her to a casino, right? Because that's a great place to hide someone from the mob.
Well, if you own the casino, yeah.
Yeah. And then she's being stalked by a couple of hitmen, and then she's also maybe falling in love with Desi Arnaz Jr., who's supposed to look after her.
I think I just had an idea for a movie, Matt.
What would that be?
Okay, so this woman's on the run from the mob, right? But it's not a ripoff of this movie at all. Except for, they get her two people to watch over her to make sure she doesn't get caught by the mob, and they hide her out in a used book and record store. Maybe somewhere in upstate New York.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out my ideal location yet, but I was thinking maybe Silver Factory Records at 1509 Saratoga Road across from the USA gas station.
Yeah.
That sounds like a reasonable place.
I would see that movie at a drive-in.
It's funny that you mention this because this movie, Matt Cimberheads, is Matt Cimber's...
his legions of adoring fans, all named Matt Cornell.
Matt Cimber fans should know that this is basically an unofficial remake of his blaxploitation classic Lady Coco, which has the same plot. So he basically just recycles the plot, puts Pia Zadora in it, and calls it a day. But Dan, you previewed probably the best part of this movie, which is that although the comedy is terrible, and there's long sequences which are just Pia Zadora explaining how Kino works, right? There are some amazing car stunts in the film. And
that car jump. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, there's a scene where a car jumps through the sky, and there's also a car driving through a casino.
Yeah, there's some Smokey and the Bandit shit going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's they blew some money on this very, very bad movie. Matt Cimber, for those of you who are still interested in learning more about this guy, he goes on to make a couple of sword and sandal exploitation movies in the 80s, and then he's basically one of the co-founders of Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. And he's the guy that Mark Maron's character is based on. This guy's had a very colorful life, most of which involves him around scantily clad women.
Right, and the Swords and Sandals movies.
Hundra is one of them.
Oh, okay. And the other one was Billy, do you like gladiator movies? No.
Fake Out's not very good. But
it was fun.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
And like she did have some kind of screen presence. Like she wasn't just like a dead fish on screen.
Yeah, I honestly think Pia Zadora gets a bad rap precisely because her rich husband bought her career. But she first of all is just very weird looking, kind of,
Mm-hmm. She looks like jailbait. She looks like one of those people who's going to look like jailbait till she's like 50.
Now she is in her 50s, I think. So yeah, now she's but she's 4'11", so everyone's like, you put her in a frame with Telly Savalas and it's just bizarre, But yeah, not a great movie, but a movie. Yeah, a thing that exists in the world.
Can't all be zingers. Speaking of which, on to our next movie.
Yeah, so speaking of bad decisions, we caught up with a documentary from 2002 from HBO called Small Town Ecstasy. You want to talk about this one, Ron?
It's a guy who is 40. He just discovered ecstasy 4 months earlier, has been doing it incessantly, and has introduced his teenage kids to it.
One of them's not even a teenager.
Yeah, one of them's like 11.
13.
Yeah.
He's 13.
Oh, he's 13,
they say that
okay.
Take this one now and then don't take it again for 5 years when you turn 18. So, yeah, that's about it.
He's having, like, the most, the most upsetting midlife crisis you've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
He's got frosted tips. It's implied that he's dealing ecstasy too, right?
And he's got like because when the cops come, they find like a bunch of little plastic baggies which cannot fit sandwiches.
Yeah.
And he's got this god awful beard that goes with the frosted tips.
Goatee.
And he just looks like every sad guy I've ever seen sitting outside a dive bar in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And he goes with his 18-year-old son to raves, wearing matching upside-down visors.
Upside down and backwards, I think.
Upside down and backwards.
Yeah. And I have to say, as someone who's spent a fair amount of time at raves, and also maybe did ecstasy before, this...
What?
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Matt is a bad influence on us.
All I can say is that this movie really does capture what that's like. I mean, I didn't go to the kinds of parties that they went to, but like...
But you did go when you were 13?
No. But everyone on ecstasy is kind of the same.
Okay.
They're all relentlessly positive. They're all gnashing their teeth, right? And everybody's their new best friend. And I think what this documentary is about on some basic level is, on the one hand, the guy is having a midlife crisis. His wife left him. He's split custody, right? He's obviously not happy with his life, and he's like some kind of version of worst parent ever, wants to be best friends with his kids. And so for him, it just makes perfect sense that you would take ecstasy with your kids because you can get even closer to them. Right? And this is the sort of tragic dimension of this, because it's not just like neglectful dad. It's like dad that really wants to like connect with you the way that he's connecting with everybody. And he wants you to feel as great as he feels.
He obviously cares about these kids. He's just too stupid for his own good.
Yeah. And what's fascinating about the documentary is it's definitely exploitative. Like, obviously the filmmakers were like, oh, and I looked this guy up. The guy only made one movie, the guy who shot this, and then he went into reality television, which makes perfect sense.
Yes.
But it is exploitative in the sense that, you're like, why are you doing this on camera? And why is anyone letting you do this on camera? But then actually, because of the documentary, the guy got busted. And also because of the presence of the cameras, at some point the kids feel emboldened enough to confront their dad. And the cameras kind of act as a sort of witness, going back to bearing witness, right? Like, it's like, you got to get your life together, right? I don't know if you got that from it. I know you didn't quite finish it yet.
I didn't. I'm still halfway through.
But it is a thing where the documentary feels like it might have helped.
Yeah, and I think I think to a certain extent, like there's right, like if movies are supposed to change how you process reality, there kind of has to be an element of that in like most movies, right? Like it kind of, except for it's also kind of scary that like you would have to be in a movie to realize it's a bad idea to take ecstasy with your young children. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 minutes into the movie, I decided that I never want to do drugs again because I don't want to be this guy.
Well, you don't have any kids.
Yeah, but I didn't want to be that guy.
I'm the closest thing to a 13-year-old person you could take ecstasy with.
And can I just say in the guy's defense,
Uh-huh.
ecstasy's a lot of fun, man.
It is a lot of fun. I can totally see why he got into it and why he keeps wanting to do it.
Yeah, and also...
No, the ecstasy, I got the ecstasy, I just didn't understand why you wanted to have children.
Oh, well, that was a done deal. But, look, the HBO covered its ass, too, because, they have these these moments where some text will appear on the screen and it's ecstasy can cause brain damage and death, just to hammer home these points. And of course, it's a relatively safe drug, honestly. But they had to put that scare stuff in there, right? But certainly, the people who are his children's brains are still forming,
right?
And if they're out doing ecstasy every weekend, that's not good.
No, and he was shirking responsibility.
There's definitely teenagers doing ecstasy, right? In the world. But the point is that this guy at some point is just throwing parties at his house,
right,
for teenagers,
or hanging out at teenagers' house for parties.
Yeah. There's also there's two really fascinating scenes in the movie. One is they take one of his sons to what they call a neural psychiatrist, and they give him an MRI, and they basically show him his brain, and they go, "This is your brain on drugs." It's one of those moments, and they're like, "Yeah, you see this? This is ecstasy eating holes in your brain, right?" I don't know how accurate any of this is, but it's a great scene in the movie because
it's pretty fun.
They're like, "This is your brain." And it's getting worse. At one point, they tell him, you have the brain of a 45-year-old. They tell this teenager this. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, I'm 49. Well,
yeah,
how does my brain look?
And his dad probably has, the brain of an 18-year-old based on what he's doing in the... So it's a brain swap movie, really.
Yeah, it's like Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
In fact, that would be a great remake of this movie. You just adapt this story. I'm sure the guy could use the money. He could probably get the rights really cheaply.
That guy cannot be doing that well right now.
And then you do well, that would be interesting to find out how they are doing, because the documentary kind of leaves it. They tell us how things are going. And
if you're like the guy that took ecstasy in this movie and you want to come on our podcast, let's do it.
The other scene I want to mention is the guy Scott. We never not using his name, but the guy's name is Scott. And at some point in the movie, he starts to realize that he's harming his children, or he's harming his relationship with his children, right? Because the movie all hinges around a custody battle with his ex-wife,
right?
Who's also a very sympathetic person in the documentary. She wants everything to
she
work
seems
out,
pretty reasonable for a person who just got divorced.
Yeah. So, anyways, at one point he starts telling the camera, people are interviewing him, that he was listening to Harry Chapin's "Cats in the Cradle," right? Which is all a song about being a shitty father.
Like the ultimate song about being.
And it's a song addressed to your son, saying, I know I'm a shitty father, and So at some point, he puts this on.
And blaring loud,
blaringly loud, and plays it for his son.
Yeah, and they're folding laundry, I think, the whole time.
Socks.
It's just it's this awkward shot, and they're just folding socks, and it's clear he's trying to get this point across. And it was vaguely, my dad would do stuff kind of like that, where he would just really like a movie for some reason. It was kind of not great, and then he'd just be like, "You need to see this movie. We're gonna have this great breakthrough in our parent-child relationship." And I watched the movie and I was like, this is stupid. And then it's just kind of hurt that I felt that it was stupid.
Was it The Scorpion King, Dad?
It was not The Scorpion King. What was it? I think it was Secret Life of Walter Mitty, maybe, or something like that. I think, to go back to your exploitation point earlier, this is an exploitative movie. I think there's definitely way more exploitative movies in things, just because there's some sense that there is hope for these people. They do have thoughts, and they try to change their behavior somewhat, even if they don't do it necessarily. it's not as exploitative as like something like Euphoria on HBO, in my opinion. Like, to me, like, the height of exploitation is when you're kind of like setting people up as ducks in a barrel so you can shoot them, and then the movie ends when you finish shooting them all, right? Yeah. And it doesn't have that vibe to it.
It seems to be rooting for everyone to come to their senses, which mostly is rooting for the dad to come to his senses, right?
Yeah, and it was fairly restrained for an early 2000s HBO. Like, there's one really ridiculous montage sequence of everybody raving with like a bunch of dissolved cuts of people dancing, but it's pretty funny, so I'll give it a pass. And I mean, it's not like a great piece of verite filmmaking or anything, but it has an interesting subject and it does a decent job relaying the subject.
I think what makes it singular is it's people not realizing that they shouldn't be doing felonies on camera, and you don't see that very often, right? You don't see people going like. And this is also a testament.
Well, this is like pre-Vice, because like on those Vice documentaries, you see that stuff like all the time.
Yeah, but I think it's also a testament to like the way that ecstasy makes you like almost have this childlike naivete, right? Where you sort of like get back in touch with like some dangerous level of innocence, right? Like,
right, you just trust anybody and anything.
I mean, I can certainly remember evangelizing about the drug, the first time I did it, but everyone needs to try this. It's like, I can imagine if you combine that with a midlife crisis, that's what this movie's about.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just checking for ticks, guys. Don't mind me.
We're in this is all paved.
Well, no, it's just, this started at the drive-in.
Oh.
And,
do you have like a bullseye there?
No.
Okay, you
don't see anything there, do you?
No.
I mean, it's like, maybe like a heat rash or something.
Mosquito bite?
Yeah, maybe a mosquito bite. Yeah. So speaking of bad fathers and verite documentary, the last thing we watched for this podcast was Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal.
Right, and it's a TV show about a guy who doesn't get a muffler installed on his motorcycle, and then he falls off of it and dies.
Yeah, one of the things I like about your podcast, Ron and Dan, is that most like cultural critics would be like, "Oh, we need to devote like a whole month of podcasts to analyzing the minutia of Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal because there's so much going on here." And you guys just kind of cramming it at the end of an episode about Evil Toons, Nope, and Fake Out, and I really respect that.
Thank you.
It's just, nothing is more important than anything else. It's all important when it's put in dialogue with each other.
Well, I think the ultimate escapism is when you're watching movies to escape other movies because they were so bad. Like, the trauma is other movies.
I think this will be a successful episode if we spend more time on Evil Toons than on The Rehearsal.
Well, what can we say about The Rehearsal that Twitter hasn't already said, or Richard Brody of The New Yorker? I mean, it's kind of been talked to death.
Yeah, I mean, so just for context, so we record this on Ron's laptop, but as soon as we got about 5 minutes into the finale of The Rehearsal, Ron literally chucked his laptop out the window to try to get Nathan Fielder out of it. So, so we're just recording on like a cell phone right now. Anyway, shout out to Richard Brody if you want to come on the program and throw electronics out your window.
He would be a great guest, actually.
Really? Oh, because me and him would just come to blows, basically?
I think he would be a fascinating person to talk about movies with.
All right, let's get him.
Richard Brody?
Yeah, Richard Brody, I know you're listening. I'm not even going to say if you're listening.
We've seen...
He might claim the Evil Toons DVD.
Yeah, Richard Brody, if you want the Evil Toons DVD, walk up to me and get it, motherfucker.
All right, so should we tell people what The Rehearsal is about for anyone in the audience who may not have heard about it?
Briefly and unsubstantively.
Okay, so Nathan Fielder of the Comedy Central show Nathan For You and a few other things. He gets a bunch of money from HBO and he starts giving people the opportunity to meticulously rehearse difficult or awkward moments in their lives and conversation. Well, not even just conversation though, because towards the end it's like a whole kind of life experience, and it just keeps escalating. into stranger and stranger directions. And we realize that just as we understand this is mostly actually about Nathan Fielder and not his subjects, Nathan Fielder, I think, understands that just as well or better than anybody. And it comes to this nice, like, self-reflexive conclusion that kind of shows some self-awareness and growth on Fielder's part, I think.
But is it a conclusion? I mean, this is the end of season 1. It's just been renewed for another season. So, by definition, if it's a hit, he can't grow or evolve, right?
Well, and that's television, right? That's the beauty of television. That anything
sitcoms that you don't grow and evolve, or otherwise the show's over.
Like Homer Simpson comes to some kind of realization at the end of the episode that saves his marriage to Marge, just so that he can screw up his marriage to Marge next week.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like that's life in a lot of ways. I think for some people.
I think that like. The most fascinating thing about the rehearsal and all the discourse around it is that if you just watch the first episode, it's like, oh my god, he finds this guy who everyone agrees is like someone we really like.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
He's this guy who he's a school teacher. He's around 50 years old, and he once lied about having a master's degree because he hangs out at the pub night with people who are who have graduate degrees, and for some reason, because it's a soft spot for him, he's just he's built it up in his head that this is a terrible lie, and so Nathan Fielder's going to help him confess this to his friend. And it's like that episode basically ends with us thinking, oh my god, is Nathan Fielder an asshole for basically putting this guy through all of these manipulative, running him through all these hoops. And then you realize, oh, we have not yet begun to manipulate people. Every episode gets a little bit worse, to the point where at one point you actually have a guy who's been convinced that he's helping out a dying old man, around his property, and then, of course, they convince the guy that he's died. After he's wiped his ass and everything, too, so it's a whole thing. And it just goes on like that, and then eventually, it's like, what about the ethics of working with child actors, right? So this sort of turn in the 5th and 6th episode here is that one of the children, apparently, and I say apparently because it could still just be a great performance, like this 8-year-old child is basically calling Nathan daddy, because he apparently doesn't know that Nathan's not his real father.
Well, I think we should set up first that so Nathan finds a woman who wants to have a child, and she wants to rehearse having a child, and then they try to find a rehearsal father. The rehearsal father drops out, and Nathan obviously becomes the rehearsal father. And eventually the woman just leaves the show, and we're just left with Nathan Fielder pretending to be the father of a rotating cast of
child actors.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think any recap is really going to do justice if someone hasn't seen this show.
Right.
They're not going to understand what the fuck we're talking about, are they?
There's nothing like this has really ever been. There's been precedence to this, right? This is sort of like if you take the Sacha Baron Cohen kind of school of comedy of kind of guerrilla pranks and stuff. If you take it to
conceptually, it's like
absolute conceptual logical conclusion, you'd end up with this.
Well, it's also a little bit like Synecdoche, New York, right? Fielder's sort of like Philip Seymour Hoffman's character in that. He's
right.
He wants to create the world in miniature and then, have people perform their real lives, right? Ultimately it comes down to him raising a child or rehearsing the raising of a child and then developing a bond with this kid. So, the last episode kind of leaves you with this thing of, should we be using child actors? That's, one
for
thing
anything,
that seems to be hovering over the show. But also, how much can we even trust Nathan Fielder? How much, maybe that kid just gave an amazing performance.
Yeah.
How will we ever know? It's TV.
It is TV.
Everyone signed NDAs, and Nathan Fielder is daring us to think the worst of him. That's part of his shtick, so...
Yeah, and I think that's why it works as satire, is that he is self-aware that he's being awful, so he kind of dials it up, and you're kind of getting this peek behind the curtain and how reality, because like reality TV, like most reality TV pretty much works like what they're doing in the rehearsal. They just don't show you the awkward stuff that makes it seem like they're awful people. And Nathan Fielder seems to have no qualms about America thinking he's a horrible person.
Yeah. And apparently, not only does he have a legion of haters like Richard Brody and a bunch of
our friend Sarah really hates Nathan Fielder,
but he also has a legion of women that are in love with him. I don't know if you've seen that. There's a parallel discourse around how hot Nathan Fielder is.
That gives me hope. Because, like, I think after saying, like, how awful we think he is, I relate to this guy a lot. I feel like, or at least the TV persona, the kind of, like, weird feeling of being able to control parts of reality when you can't. Like, this kind of strong anxiety, or this sort of delusion that you can actually control or mitigate uncertainty to that extent.
Do you also see yourself as a master manipulator?
You know, honestly, not to, if I had HBO money, maybe. I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty good at convincing people to do stuff. I don't know,
like above all else, he convinced.
Like we got Charles Burnett showed up on this show for 2 hours to talk about pigeons without knowing who the hell we were.
Ron is probably the ultimate critic of this episode at this point because
his silence is deafening.
Of the last episode of the rehearsal?
No, of this episode right now. You're perilously close to falling asleep because that's how fascinating our analysis is.
Yeah, we're digging deep.
I don't have much else to add.
I mean,
not everybody's going to make it.
Do you think Fielder can keep this going, basically? Because, like, so far it's been like this high wire act of like, oh, every episode he adds a new layer, it's like you're in a... there's just funhouse mirror after funhouse mirror. Like, at some point, right, this has got to jump the shark.
At this point, I think this guy could do anything. Like, the fact that he has kept this stuff this consistent and this interesting, he's directing all the stuff now, because, like, the Nathan For You episode, I don't know if he actually, like, directed all of those, per se. He's exploring the same themes, and he's getting closer and closer to, or at least he's coming up with new, still interesting and fresh permutations on said themes. And I don't know. I think the sky's the limit for him, because I don't think the stuff that holds back other comedians, he doesn't seem to fall into those traps. Like, he knows. He understands what he's doing, I think, on a deeper level than, say, maybe like a Sacha Baron Cohen, where it's sort of like, oh, I got all these laughs for doing this shtick, I'm just going to keep doing this shtick over and over again.
Well, and actually this would be the argument I'd want to have with someone like Richard Brody, because he, like, said, Sacha Baron Cohen, at least he does political satire, and this is not political at all. This is just very narcissistic and manipulative, and I'm like, wow, have you been not paying much attention to Sacha Baron Cohen? Like,
well, and
his stuff is very manipulative too. And honestly, like, I think he misses what's explicitly political about the rehearsal is that it's not about, like, my take on Sacha Baron Cohen, aside from what I think are some very obvious cheap forms of manipulation, is that he basically panders to liberal self-regard. So, right.
Not even just liberal self-regard, because when I was in college, like, a lot of kids, like, I went to a very, very diverse school, which just means, like, in practical terms, that just means that, like, there's a lot of different directions the racism is going in. I remember, like, there were a lot of kids who just thought that was just funny on a basic level, like the throw the Jew down the well thing. They didn't understand it as irony or satire. They just thought it was funny because... And I think with Sacha Baron Cohen, hiding behind the politics means that it's more narcissistic and pandering, because you're flattering the audience. I think what keeps Nathan Fielder fresh in a way that a lot of those other prank show types don't really maintain their relevance over a long period of time is that he's actively confronting the audience. There's stuff in all of this stuff where he's criticizing himself, but he's by doing so, he is criticized. He doesn't. Yeah, he's at a confrontational place with the audience. Sacha Baron Cohen, he's at a confrontational place with the person he's interviewing, and then you get this kind of exciting high of getting off on being in on the joke.
And also it's sort of like Cohen doesn't really implicate himself, right?
No.
He might put himself in danger.
Well, and Cohen's playing a character,
Yeah,
too.
right. He has various disguises and characters, and Nathan Fielder's character is always Nathan Fielder.
Yeah.
Which makes it uncomfortable. It makes it more uncomfortable, right? Because he's much more implicated, and of course, there's always the risk that someone like that's teased in the first episode of the rehearsal, where Core says you're a horrible person, right?
Right.
And of course, it's not the real Core; it's a rehearsal of the Core saying this. But a lot of people, of course, that was edited so well that a lot of people didn't even notice this moment. So I think there's always the possibility that someone will tell Nathan Fielder that he went too far, and that he'll actually probably take that to heart. And I don't ever get that from Sacha Baron Cohen.
He's
I get the
fully
idea that he's
owning his art.
I think Sacha Baron Cohen, it's already been determined that if he humiliates you, you deserved it. And because you're a bad person or you have bad politics, right? And I never get that sense with Nathan Fielder. I even get the sense that even when he's got horrible people, like the guy who's like openly anti-Semitic on episode 2 or 3, right? Mm-hmm. He's still like trying to root for them to like not humiliate themselves on his show.
Right.
Like, I don't like,
Right, and I think he's very patient. He observes people a lot, and I think that's really like in Nathan For You. The best moments in Nathan For You are where things that he genuinely does not expect to happen. Yeah. And he seems very kind of excited, and he's just letting the camera roll. Like when the gas station rebate episode, when the guy at the gas station just starts going off about like grandson pee for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's a great moment.
It's a great moment, and he's just kind of willing to let these people exist in their own context. Yeah. For the most part.
And there's a lot of moments like that in the rehearsal as well, although in the back half of it, I was just saying that they're going to outlaw motorcycles, I think, in Saratoga soon. Because it's
going to be called a podcast loft.
Well, it's just like there's horses. Aren't horses good enough? Don't you love horses? This fucking town was built on horses.
Yeah.
No, but what I was trying to say is, like, you can see this... exactly.
Yes.
It's good for you.
Yeah, it's Saratoga water, huh?
It's like, have you ever had the pee of like a 5-year-old? It's also really good for you.
But yeah, and I think with Nathan Fielder too, he's coming at more and more difficult questions that don't have, because I think one of the issues of like satirizing racism is that it's very easy to get kind of very obvious and pedantic, right? We all know, well, hopefully all of us know that racism is bad, right?
Right. And I don't have the time to go into this, but like Sacha Baron Cohen's own racism is not quite challenged in his comedy. I mean, when he starts putting on brownface to play, an Arab character, it's like, what is Ali G but like a Pakistani character?
Right.
It's like, okay. And, you don't, like, what I was getting at with this, with where we're going with rehearsal is in the back half of the rehearsal season 1, it's not even really about real people anymore.
No.
It's about like Nathan's own authenticity. Right? And he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if the thing becomes a full-on sitcom by season 2, where Nathan Fielder's playing himself, surrounded by actors. By the end of this season of the rehearsal, almost nobody left in the show anymore is quote-unquote real. Mm-hmm. Right? Almost everybody is an actor who's playing a real person whose referent is not there.
Right.
And it's just Nathan Fielder along with a bunch of actors, right? They kind of start doing that turn with the Fielder method in episode 4.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, it's mostly just Nathan in a sitcom of his own creation, right? There's almost nobody who's quote-unquote real at that point.
Well, and I think there's like a personal dimension to this that, right, because like Fielder, his wife left him after the second season of Nathan For You, right? And I can only imagine, like, being married to Nathan Fielder must be very difficult. B, there's some of like the comic strip Gasoline Alley.
Yeah.
And you know how they like age in real time, and the whole thing starts.
Just pause for me.
Oh yeah, You drink it too? That is great. I love it.
One thing
Nathan
that we
Fielder.
learned from Nathan Fielder is that there's nothing more interesting than real people.
Yeah, and he seems like genuinely interested in people, I think.
Right,
And
real people.
that's what I think draws me to. Because I was kind of wondering, like, why do I relate to this guy? Oh, we're not even recording yet.
Oh, we are.
Oh, we are recording. Okay, so
Well, he's interested in real people, but he's interested in manipulating them. He's interested
guess
in learning
so.
about them, but through manipulation. And you realize, as we're talking about this, you asked me earlier about season 2 and jumping the shark. It took me 2 seasons of watching Cobb as a Hades show to dislike him. It only took me 1 season to dislike Nathan Fielder.
And yet you've still watched.
it's
all
so
of
funny,
Nathan Fielder.
though.
Oh yeah, up to the end.
Like, he makes me laugh more than any person on television, I think.
I don't think he's funny anymore.
Really?
I might have to go watch Nathan For You again and not laugh.
I don't know.
You don't think he's funny?
I've probably seen
Not
that gas
anymore.
station rebate episode like 5 times, and I'm falling over every single time.
Yeah, I'm rehearsing it in my mind right now. I'm rehearsing it in my mind right now, and I don't think it's that funny.
You said, Dan, that it must be very hard to be married to Nathan Fielder. So I have a dream episode for you guys.
Okay.
You should get Richard Brody and
Nathan Fielder.
Fielder's ex?
Fielder's ex-wife on
Oh,
the
shit.
show. And then we can,
The People versus Nathan Fielder.
well, and then Ron as well, and then they could all debate you.
You as the stand-in for Nathan.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I mean...
Well, you could rehearse it on Nathan's behalf.
Jonathan.
Yeah, because I couldn't figure out why do I relate to this guy so much. And somebody who helps me at the store, I was talking with them about that, and they were like, "You really like talking to strange people," which I do like doing that. It's a lot of what I do in my spare time, basically. And yeah, I think that he's just kind of putting the kind of people that I interact with on a regular basis on camera, and he's just kind of letting them do their thing outside of like the pranks.
Yeah. I mean, we should be clear that anyone who's in a Nathan TV show, or if they're on the rehearsal, they signed a release form. We also know that they signed an NDA, and the show
Right.
even makes a self-reflexive joke about this too, right? Like at one point, Nathan is handed legal documents when he's playing somebody.
Well, and they'll shoot, like, the people signing it, it's like, and he'll say to them, like, so you're basically signing away your image for all of eternity, and they're like, fine, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And I think, like, him play acting as a father, he's not terrible at it. He's not, like, I would expect him to be much more awkward as a parent than he is in that show.
Do you think Nathan Fielder would ever give his kids ecstasy?
I can't imagine him doing drugs ever.
Yeah.
Like, I have a hard time imagining him drinking.
The weird thing is that ecstasy's most widely known effect is empathy, right? In fact, in its clinical, like in the early experiments, right, with using ecstasy, they were using it with sociopaths and, who had killed people to get them to see if they could induce empathy, right? So, like, one question kind of hovering over Nathan Fielder and the rehearsal is he a sociopath, right? Like, because he constantly talks about how he doesn't understand other people's feelings, right? And I don't know if that's really true or if that's just something he says.
Well, he doesn't seem to have, like, the delusions of grandeur or, like, he's toying with people, but he doesn't seem to be getting, like, a lot of, like, satisfaction out of it. He seems to be just kind of like this person trying to find himself through other people. Like Finding Francis, the last episode of Nathan.
You don't think making an award-winning, critically celebrated, much-beloved comedy show is getting satisfaction? Like,
well, I don't know. He doesn't seem that happy, though.
He's a comedian. He knows he's getting funny stuff.
Right.
Well, he mirrors his own plot line in Finding Francis with the Bill Gates impersonator, right? Like, they hire that prostitute and then he just ends up in this relationship where he's paying for the relationship, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's not a real thing, but he's convincing himself it is, just like the Bill Gates impersonator is convincing himself that this Francis woman still thinks about him ever.
What I'm getting at is, wouldn't it be great to see Nathan Fielder take ecstasy so that he can empathize with his son?
So, like, I don't hate Las Vegas anymore, but with Nathan Fielder.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think?
I could see Nathan Fielder giving his kid ecstasy, telling them that it's candy, and then trying to let them figure out what's going on.
No, you know what?
Do you think that Nathan Fielder would buy his kid a doinkit?
No, he would take it away.
I think actually Nathan Fielder is more likely to give someone ecstasy or give someone candy and tell them it was ecstasy, just to see how they would react.
Uh-huh.
You know, sort of like how when you go to a hypnotist at the fair or something,
Yeah.
and they tell someone to act like a chicken, and then the person does it because they want to act like a chicken.
Right.
Yeah, I opened for a hypnotist once at the high school over there, and yeah, they were like scooting on the floor like they had worms, and they're doing this and that,
And that was just from your act. Then what did the hypnotist do?
oh yeah, and the hypnotist just like asked him for their social security number and then skipped
Oh,
town.
that's great. You guys work well together then.
Yeah, it was that was my introduction to show business, and then I found Ron, a few weeks later.
I clucked like a chicken?
No, but just like I'd been indoctrinated into show business by this hypnotist, and then we started the podcast, like, a few weeks after I was like 16, clearly.
And I was 25?
Yeah, it was a long time. That was season 1, we're on like season 30 now.
29.
Something like, we're like more episodes in Degrassi. Certainly far more episodes than the rehearsal. I mean, technically, we've had more episodes than all of Nathan Fielder's work combined.
So did we cover everything that we watched? I mean, other than Little Shop of Horrors?
Little Shop of Horrors was fun. It was a sing-along. My only disappointment was that I was the only person in the entire drive-in that was singing along.
Oh, I was singing.
You were singing. That's right. Matt was singing occasionally.
I had never
Dum,
seen
dum.
the movie, so it's not my fault. I didn't know the songs. See, that would have been a thing where it would have made sense to screen it off a Blu-ray, because then you could do the subtitles, and then you got like basically a karaoke thing going on.
That's what I was expecting. I was expecting a bouncing ball, but hey, I had a blast, like sitting there and singing, and I was worried the whole time that the people next to me will tell me to be quiet. But they seemed to appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no. We also watched Elvis, but that was the night we had food poisoning, so I don't think we can talk about it.
Yeah,
No,
Elvis
we'll have to
Can't
rewatch
really
it. and
trust
discuss
our.
Elvis was a movie that happened.
it. Yeah, no, we're gonna have to rewatch it.
But yeah, so we're rebranding in the next episode, renaming the show to You Were Wrong.
Wait, let's get some more real people. That's what Nathan Fielder would do.
We like the Mahoning Drive-In.
We probably could have put the thing right in their
Probably
face.
coulda, just like, hey, you're on the radio. It's what's up? Well, I would have call-ins on my old radio show, and it's just like, hi, you're on WSBN 91.1 FM, Saratoga Springs, New York. What do you got to say? Is there anything you'd like to hear?
Dancing Queen.
All right.
You asked.
That's more or less everything we watched together. We didn't talk about. Did we talk about The Invisible Man? Maybe we did. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
The Invisible Man.
Invisible Agent.
Well, no, we watched 2 Invisible Man movies. We watched so many movies.
We also watched Ernie Kovacs. That was when we were starting to be food poisoned, though. And Sid and Marty Croft.
That was at the height of the food poisoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has there ever been a documentary where like a guy accidentally gave his kids food poisoning?
All right. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
Yeah. My next big move in life. I'm going to move to Saratoga Springs and open up a muffler shop.
Do it.
Just to cover my bets. I'm also going to sell hangover cures. I'll just open up when the bars close, like around 5 in the morning. Give you a muffler while you recover from your hangover.
So I guess my final thought is, so we finally got an official sponsor on the show, and so this is a pre-written message that they've asked me to read on the show for them. They paid us handsomely to do it. Are you tired of it hurting when you pee? Do you frequently experience night tremors? Come on down to Silver Factory Records and Books. We've got records, we got books, we got CDs, we got tapes, we got DVDs, we got comic books. Good luck with that other stuff. Silver Factory Records and Books. 1509 Saratoga Road, Balsam Spa, New York. We're in the Red Building across from the USA gas station.
Oh, I heard about that place. You know, a buddy of mine, he bought a paperback of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance,
Oh,
and he found a $20 bill, like in like.
oh yeah, I heard about that too. Yeah.
Just and I.
And you know what? The weirdest thing about that I heard was he immediately turned around and he spent the $20 bill in the Silver Factory Records and Books place. Like, what kind of place is this?
And then found 2 other books that had $20 bills in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then he found a movie inside one of the books that was worth exactly $20. It was called Evil Toons. And
It's worth more if it has the postcard.
it is worth more if it has a postcard. Yeah, and it's in the Red Building across from the USA gas station. You all know where that is. Especially our international listeners, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Ludilka, come down to Silver Factory Records.
Yeah, Ludilka, if you want the copy of Evil Toons, we'll figure out a way to get it through the Iron Curtain.
We should also thank the venues that were involved.
Mm-hmm.
So the Malta Drive-In, Mahoning Drive-In,
My house.
The Saratoga Racecourse.
Views Download.
Oh.
All right. Well, on that note,
I'm getting cold. I
Yeah.
don't know about anyone
Yeah,
else, but
so we're...
all 3 of my nipples are quite hard right now.
So yeah, come see us. We're in the Red Building across from the USA. All right, well, until next time, I'm still Dan.
and I'm still Ron.
And I was Matt.
But he is mad no longer. So we'll see you at the movies.
Take care, everyone.
Oh, man. Good luck editing that one, Ron.